Hello everybody, my name's Andrew Loffer and I'm going to tell you a story today called The Hunchback and the Swan. Now this story is from a book called Fireside Tales for the Traveller Children. It's 12 Scottish tales told by Duncan Williamson and narrated by, I think, Alan B. Harriott. The book was actually copyrighted in 1983 and the illustrations copyrighted in 1985, but the stories are from the early 1900s, maybe 1930s or so. The Hunchback and the Swan. Long ago there lived a hunchback who was mute. He could hear just fine, but he couldn't utter a single word. He lived deep in the forest in a small hut. He had no family or friends to speak of. He would make a meager living selling firewood to the villagers. He would collect wood sticks from the forest and break them up into firewood and carry them into the village every day, day in and day out. And the villagers really appreciated the firewood, but they really didn't appreciate the hunchback. In fact, they hated the hunchback because the hunchback was so ugly. He had a big hump on his back, and his forehead was really big, and his face was super long, and it went down, down, down into a real pointy chin. In fact, he was rather frightening to look at. And the children of the village were terribly mean to him. It was so sad because the hunchback was a very friendly fellow, but the kids would call him names, and they would throw sticks and rocks at him. So he would sell his sticks as soon as he could, get the things that he needed, and then go back to the hut. Well, there at the hut, he had friends, many, many friends, and those were the animals of the forest. So he would go sit on a stump, and the animals would gather around him. And the squirrel might come sit on his lap so he could pet him. And the birds might sit on his shoulders so that they would sing to him. And all the other animals would come too, and they would be around him. And maybe the fox and the rabbit would sit together, and the deer. They would forget their differences for a short while he was there among them. Peace was with them, and they just loved him, and they loved the daily ritual. Nearby there was a lake, and in that lake lived a lone swan. The swan was beautiful, with a beautiful, graceful neck and gorgeous white feathers. He went to the lake every single day, hoping to visit with the swan. But the swan didn't want to have anything to do with him. He was so sad about that. He tried everything he could to get the swan to visit with him. He would take his lunch there every day, and he would have his lunch, and he would throw pieces of bread into the water, hoping that the swan would come and visit with him. But no. You see, the swan was mute too, and the swan didn't want to go over there to him because she was mute. It was a terrible thing. But all summer long he toiled away, took his sticks into the village, ran away from the children, came back and met with all the other animals and fed them and petted them and played with them, went to the lake, and every day was shunned by the swan in the lake. It was a hard summer and went into fall, and suddenly it was October and it was a biting cold. And the villagers were surprised one day when the hunchback didn't come with the sticks. And they said, well, maybe he's ill today. We'll get the sticks tomorrow. Well, the next day, he didn't come with the sticks again. And so they were just upset about that. And the animals in the forest started to notice too. In fact, even the swan noticed. The swan started doing circles in the lake, kept looking for where he was, where he would always sit. But he wasn't showing up. He wasn't there. It was curious. And on the third day, the villagers really missed him. Well, they didn't miss him, but they missed the sticks. And all the animals really did miss him because they loved him very much. And so the animals decided to gather together without him. Now the robin was the king of the winter. And so he was the spokesperson for the group. So he spoke up and he said, it's been 3 days now since we haven't seen the hunchback. I look at his hut and there's no smoke coming from the chimney. And his doors and windows are fastened tight. Something must be terribly wrong, and we can't get in. And the squirrel, the nervous little squirrel, said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do if we can't get in? We've got to help him. And so the robin said, I know what we'll do. We'll go talk to Mr. Owl over there in the hollow oak tree. So they all walked over to the oak tree to talk to Mr. Owl. Mr. Owl sat there and he listened to what was going on. And he said, I think I might know what's going on here. You see, the hunchback goes to the lake every day to visit with the swan. But the swan, she won't pay attention to him. I think he's in love with the swan, and I think he may be dying from a broken heart. All the animals looked at each other, back and forth, and they said, I think you're right. And they thought, well, what can we do, Mr. Owl? What can we do, Mr. Owl, to help our friend? So he said, send the swallow out to the swan, because the swallow can hover, and ask the swallow to tell the swan what's going on. I think the swan appreciates the hunchback, even though she shuns him. And so they did. They did send out the swallow, and the swallow went out there and was hovering over the swan and telling the swan what was going on. And the swallow said, the hunchback, the mute hunchback, is in deep, deep trouble, and we may be dying, and we need your help. And so the swan, the only thing she heard was that the hunchback was mute. She never knew that the hunchback was mute, just like her. So she immediately turned toward the beach where all the animals were standing, and she swam over there as fast as she could. And she went through the crowd, and she put one foot up on the land and then started waddling up to the hut. And she got to the hut, she pushed it open with her beak, and she walked inside. And all the other animals were there at the door, and they were looking inside, and they couldn't see anything. It was too dark. So they asked the robin to go up to the window to tell them what was going on. So the robin did. And they said, what's going on? What's going on? Tell us, please. And so the robin looked in, and she said, the swan, she's sitting there staring at him. Oh my, he looks awful. He's awfully pale. He's barely breathing and his eyes are shut. I think he's on death's door. Wait. And the swan reached her neck over and laid it across his neck. And he described that, and he says, oh, it's beautiful. The swan's accepting him. He's accepting the hunchback. And when the swan put her neck across his neck, his eyes fluttered open. And he started petting the neck of the swan. It was just beautiful. And the robin said, oh, it's gorgeous. He's woken up and he's petting the swan and they're cuddling together. I can't believe it. And then he sat up for a moment. And when he sat up, the swan looked at him, and she reached over and she plucked a feather from her wing. And with her beak, she pushed the feather into his chest. And the robin couldn't believe his eyes. The hunchback started to transform. He said, oh my goodness, his neck's getting longer. Feathers are starting to grow out of his face and his body. Oh my gosh. And it was such a demonstration of powerful love that a ball came up into the robin's throat and he could no longer speak. So a few minutes later, the front door opened up and out came two swans, two beautiful swans. And they waddled their way down to the lake, got into the water, and glided off as gracefully and beautiful, swimming into the middle of the lake, where they lived till the rest of their days. And all the other animals looked at each other, and they said, well, at least they're not alone anymore. The world is as it should be now. The robin couldn't say a word, and never again spoke. So all the other animals turned around and dispersed into the forest. Thank you.